Hiya. How's it going? Just checking out the YouTubes, making sure that we are live. Sure we're live. Where did my website go? There's my website. Let's check this audio. And we're good. I always, since earlier this week, we had an issue with the YouTubes and the YouTubes. Sound like my grandpa. You're on those YouTubes, boy. Yeah. Anyway, so with regard to that, YouTube is up and running. Just waiting on Couchbot to catch up with that. But I do think that we're in a good position to go ahead and leave the station. It's like the 5th Tuesday of the week, so everybody's probably a little frazzled. But I gotta say, I want to say this fully. I want to put this out there. People have been submitting work every single day this week, and I applaud you. I really do. That's good work, everybody. It's not easy to stay on the horse when the world is going absolutely insane around you. So I recognize the struggle it is to keep pushing forward, and I've talked with people all week long talking about I don't know how I focus on this right now because the world is so weird and I can't stop looking at the TV and refresh, doom scrolling. And we've talked about some methods of, for me it's like literally I make little lists and I post them, little things like this, little post-its with little notes on it. And I realize, yeah, sure, that I could do a better job by making that list on my phone or in the computer or whatever, but I literally need it in front of my face so that I pay attention to it. Because the moment it goes away in some sort of digital device, I ignore it. Not that I want to ignore it, it's just that my mind focuses in on other things. So, and I'll be completely honest with you, I've really had to commit to doing things like daily stand-up. Like I'm in daily stand-up every single day. I don't miss a day, because it's where I get, like I announced earlier today, I'm going to at least release a new exercise. And I said what the exercise was. If you're wondering, go check out Daily Stand Up. And if you're not part of the Discord community, over there at the new Pragmatic community in Discord, I should flip that around. It's a new Pragmatic community, not a Discord community. But anyway, it's on Discord. If you're not part of that, go to newpragmatic.com, sign up. We'll get you into the community. And if you're watching these videos and you're getting something out of them, please click subscribe. I clip all of this stuff off the finished video later, so this is really just for those of you who are watching the live stream. But I commit every day to going in there and kind of laying out, like, here's what I did yesterday. So I've got to report in that I did something. And then here's what I'm going to do today. And a lot of times that message is, I got a lot of meetings today. And I do. I'm meeting with Eddie and I'm meeting with Bren today. I've got to carry the kid to the doctor. I've got a busy day. But we're releasing new curriculum today. I don't care what's happening in that old man race for the White House. Don't care. I got to get some stuff released. So just know that I'm right there with you. I feel the struggle, but we're also going to be releasing a ton of new material. The month of November is going to be a ton of new material, and it's in an area that I'm really excited to write new material in. I was speaking with Maddie yesterday. She learned HTML and CSS and front end from me in 2015. Everything's changed. Everything about it has changed, and some ways better than others, but just the way we lay things out. CSS Grid and Flexbox by itself. The thought that when I taught CSS in 2015, it was all still float left, float right. That was basically how you positioned things, and that's like insane to think about now. the fact that we would have written CSS that way, nuts. Can't imagine it. So, that said, that was an interesting sound. We're gonna clip this out for the final. If you got the live stream cookie there, that's good for you. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and well, wait, we haven't kicked it off yet. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney, new Pragmatic. Time for the feedback loop. So good to have you along. And we got a lot of people in here today. We've got Eddie in here. We've got Ricardo in here. We've got Abby in here twice, 2 different projects. Super excited to see that. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize about this, the way we do things here versus the way you might do it at another place. There are several different ways at New Pragmatic to roll in 2 different directions at the same time. UX, UI, I've totally seen people go through and do UX, UI at the same time because there are lulls in UX where you're waiting on feedback from people, you're waiting on surveys, you're lining up user interviews. And then on the flip side of things, I've seen people dual track it through portfolio and a project, or dual track it through career and a project. And that's totally allowed here because I want you to be making the most of your time. And sometimes you need to look at this like it's it's an intensive. Yeah, I remember back in college, I didn't take one design course at a time and then go take another design course the next semester. I took like 2 and 3 design courses at the same time. Sometimes you'll learn things from one to the other that you'd be like, man, I wish I would really known that, a little while ago. But it's certainly better, I think, to move at the pace that you're ready to commit to. So if you want to move really fast and you can't like do multiple tracks, that's a problem. So we allow that here. And that's how we get things like Abby turning in a presentation exercise for UX while also turning in a feedback exercise for UI. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Let's get this underway. All right, we're going to start right here with Abby. She has turned in her designing feedback exercise. And the first, I'm going to hide these tools away. The first part of this exercise is just looking at, can you take something that has, basically it was a button, it was just had white type and whatnot, and it challenges you to come up with an active state, a hover state, and a selected state for the clickable items that are part of this layout. And as you can see, everything's broken apart, so it's not like you can't get access and go in here and do very specific things with the type. I rebuilt these based on existing sites. So this state design challenge, she came up with, she's using this kind of it's a little more neon yellow. It's not quite a green. But she's come up with this for the active state. This just means, hey, this is underlined and this is the page you're on. Hover, like she's outlined this button and she's, underlined that. So on hover, this changes back to white, it looks like. And then when it's selected, this mutes down. That's when you're clicking it. I'm guessing it goes from the outline to this bit more muted, and the selected is just like that one click, or that one tap. And this is very material design oriented, where the colors, step down on some sort of selection. So that's we've seen that before. Let's come over here to see this other option. So here the active state, she's just completely highlighted that and she's picked up this red from the heart. A lot of people do that. That's very common. So here on hover, if I'm hovering over these, I'm guessing that now she's just got the lines above and below. That's something that I don't see all that often. For this state over here, it's interesting because all of these appear to have some sort of change that's happened. So the active state for this button in the upper right has a red outline on it, and it does the same thing happens here for the secondary. This the primary, and it's not uncommon to have primary and secondary buttons. The primary is black and then changes to the red, and then on selection here, there's some sort of shadow, and that's interesting. The big thing here is that I'm looking for the creation of a style. I'm not really judging the style itself. I'm wanting to make sure that you're recognizing that there needs to be a visual difference occurring to indicate, to provide that feedback to the user that's coming along. Now, you can also go in and apply some ARIA styles, which helps with accessibility. That's something else that we're going to be getting into in the HTML side of things. But that's nothing that you do on the interface side before. That's like a code consideration. That's not something you have to worry about here. Here, I'm worried primarily about how does it appear, and you're doing a good job of attacking that here. Exercise 2, this is empty state, and the thing to remember about empty state is there's some text off to the side, and then this empty state dashboard, like none of this stuff is here. So here choose an option to build a research cohort of your own. In the research cohort, you can import participants, or you can create a form. And the only thing I'm confused by here is you gave me 2 options, which is fine. One, it's more centered, and the other, it's up here at the top. For if I'm asked for, like, which one do you like? I like this one. I think it commands a little more attention over here, having so much white space around it. This one kind of crowds up into the top, but that's like splitting hairs. Like if somebody said, choose one, I'd choose this one. But if you gave me this one, I'd be like, oh, okay. The other thing I look at here is these options. When I look at the spacing here, the only thing I would do to make this tighter would be to pull this in, because what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to basically, if I use the old rectangle trick, I'm trying to get that spacing between the elements. Like, is this spacing the same as that spacing? And if we take that same rectangle trick and we put it over here, you can see, like, that's pretty far apart, and this would have to be like up here, and then it starts really falling apart. So instead of going down in size, what I'd actually want to do is that I would actually want to pull this together, and then figure out like what the center point is on all of that. But you get the idea. Like where it was too far apart by comparison with this, which is more of a unit. All right, but good job overall. Last part. Let's look at part 3. So here you're given a series of conditionals. So if the order is placed, what happens next? So I'm in the checkout. I place my order. What happens next? Okay, so I've got a confirmation. So this is literally, it goes from checkout to confirmation. This changes. You've got an order number. Here's your total. Here's your order overview. That works great. If the order is canceled, what happens next? So I'm here in checkout, and I say instead cancel the order. Okay, this is good. So there's a couple of different ways that I typically see this handled. This is not bad. It is definitely getting closer to what I'm looking for. I see cancel order. Are you sure you want to cancel the order? Cancel order, back to checkout. So you're basically putting I want you to confirm that you really want to cancel this order. So cancel order, back to checkout. Back to checkout means I could basically go back to here, right? And this is important because if I've gone through and selected the things that I want to order and I accidentally hit cancel order, which does happen, I don't want a destructive act to simply like slide through and happen. I want to put a little buffer there. And people go, no, I just want to cancel the order. It's like, yeah, but I would rather inconvenience you by making sure you want to cancel that order than clearing out your cart because you made an accidental click. I realize it seems to border on the, they try to make it so hard to not purchase things. But it's actually to the benefit of most users because that's not a common paradigm. Most people just leave the cart. Most people just abandon the cart. They don't cancel the order. But if you want to cancel the order, you need some sort of confirmation there. I was confused about, like, I don't know why this would be dropped back in intensity. So, I would think that this would be something I would want to have and not fade it. So there's some question there. I've also seen this in terms of a popover. I've seen it used as a popover and then if I hit cancel order, what happens then? So really, that's the question I would have for you, because when we're talking about building a prototype, yes, you got me to the cancel order, and this is the right feedback, but we have not finished the flow because at some point I hit cancel order, and then what? And this is the discussion you'll have with every developer you ever work with. Okay, great, yeah, I can build that. What happens next? The team that you're working with is always going to be looking for the complete flow, not the next step. They want to see the whole vision, okay? And over here, this is the whole vision. This is the confirmation. We need some sort of confirmation for this action. We don't have that yet. So while everything here is good up to that point, we have not finished the flow. All right, so I need one more screen here, and I would consider changing these back to not faded because they are very, very much important to the page that they're on. But otherwise, really good there. Let's go over here to Ricardo, and Ricardo is working through, and I can tell right away you've gone through and you've taken that to heart on you've removed the labels that were in the way, and this is a much better mix on the spacing. I think you've done a much better job there. This is Nunito, and you've paired it with Spectral. So I really feel good about the work that you've done here. Let's come on over to see the second one. All right, so some of this works, some of this doesn't. Most of what I'm reacting to here is just the line height, Ricardo. So if this line, right now the line height is 60 on 82, and you'll see me do some things like 90%. 90%, again, like I said yesterday, you get into trouble when you have descenders and ascenders running into each other. So 90% probably isn't what you're looking for. But if we just said 60 on, not 60%, we just highlighted this and said 60 on 60. No, I didn't want the percentage. Thanks. That's basically 100%. And at that size, when you can, I think it's really important. Let's duplicate this. Let's actually back up and duplicate this whole unit so that we can see this side by side. Okay. So here we are. We got the whole unit. And again, this is not a take on the typography you've got here at all. I want to say 95%. And 95% is just 95% of 60. So whatever 95% of 60 would be. If 60 is 100% of 60, 95 would probably be 56 or something. Anyway, I'm not the best on the fast math. So the first thing that does, adjusting this space, is it allows this headline to command it feels more like a unit now. The other thing it allows you to do is it allows you to look at, okay, so I want to package this information together so that it's, the reset podcast, it's the headline here, it's the intro, and then it's the download now. If we look at that by comparison to how it's working up here, this content is forced to be closer to download now because the line height here is taking up so much space. Now you can get some separation and you can read this content and still have that download now away from the rest of it. The other thing you could do is if you really, I'm going to show you something here with regard to auto layout. Is this like, got it. Okay, so I just ungrouped that for a second. I just want to take that download now. So right now you've got it drawn as a shape. If you come in and you put auto layout on it, what you'll notice is I'm going to add a fill to auto layout. And it will make it a button for you. Maybe you don't want to have a fill on it. Maybe you just want to have that stroke like you had it just a second ago. Well, then you can do that very easily. And with auto layout, you might not want it to be that tall. Well, that's fine. You can adjust that right here. And I realize we haven't covered auto layout. I'm kind of walking ahead a little bit here with you. But I want you to know that you don't have to necessarily manually draw these shapes to get buttons. Because I realize what that means is like you're constantly in here trying to like futz around with like where exactly is that shape at, because it's like it's not quite in here now. I'm having to center it. You can get it exactly in the center with auto layout, and with auto layout it does this fun thing where the box just naturally expands. So like it's the coolest thing ever. But you also can come up here, and if you want rounded corners, you can. Oh no, that's not what I was looking for. This is what I was looking for. If you want rounded corners, you can have that. I think yours were a bit more extreme, maybe even more extreme than that, but you get the idea. And then also, like regarding size, if this came down in size, the box also changes. Okay, so just I would spend some time with auto layout, get comfortable with that, because it's going to be a much friendlier thing to use than manually going through. And yours is still not. Yeah, it's more like that. Yeah, I think it's just slightly more than that, Chris. How about there? We'll go there, and maybe we'll put 20 on this. Yeah, that's pretty close. Although I think you might be more like that. Anyway, play around with auto layout. I think you will really enjoy it. And we'll be using auto layout more throughout the program. But yeah, so again, how this works, how this comes together, Ricardo, is fixing the line height. Again, the reason why it wasn't an issue over here, single line headline, becomes an issue over here, and you can kind of see really quickly how it allows, really the rest of it's fine. All I'm really fixing here is line height. The rest of this is basically the same, although I did show you the little auto layout trick. Okay, so Taco John. I think I've realized what the problem with this exercise is. I'm giving you too much space to work with, and it's tripping your desire to like fill the space. You have done a good job here. You've brought Taco John in. I think you've done a better job over here. Frankly, I think this is working a lot better for you than the other because there's less space to work with. Okay. The one interesting thing though that I wanted to put in front of you is when we bring in another restaurant name, and it is important to think about this in terms of this is like an iPhone. Like this is a list of things. When you bring in another name, how does Taqueria and Tontanilco change how you lay that out? You may not have to, but you can see that it's a lot longer. And being a lot longer, you probably want to look at this in terms of spacing, having it over. And this is something to think about for mobile as we begin to, we're just now beginning to like scratch at these new spaces, okay? When you get into mobile, you want equal spacing on the right and the left, okay? You want to really take advantage of the space available. I wouldn't go much bigger than that. That's 25. If you study the human interface guidelines and material design, you'll find that it's more likely to be like 18 in bold, maybe 20 in bold. 25 is going a bit up there because, again, this is a long-ish name, but it's not a super long name. The other thing that you want to look at is like simplification. Restaurant, fine. That's not a big deal. Whether or not you need it depends on the type of list. If this was a list of everything going down Geyer Springs Road here, then restaurant would be helpful. But if this is a list of restaurants, then you can get rid of that. Oh, not get rid of that. You can get rid of that because these are all restaurants. I've searched on Yelp for restaurants, so I don't need it to say restaurant, 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 restaurant. You're working with the content that was handed to you, but I do want to throw that out there. But here you've got two different sizes, and we always want to make the type earn its place. So I wouldn't go with 16 here. I'd shrink it down to 12, and I would package these two things together. Now, is that away from the typography? Is that with the typography? One common trick would be to package pre-order across from this so that it basically is aligned. And we'll get into like button, what is the proper button size and target and all that. But what that would allow you to do is that would allow you to bring over, and if you had a longer name, you could go all the way across. So just something to consider as you're working through this. But again, the big trick here is spacing, taking advantage of the space, and then simplifying. Okay, if we just stayed with your same design on like the type size, it works. Simplify, spacing. Okay, and then why did I make this a little larger? Mainly so that I could target it with my finger. But what you're going to find out is that a lot of these things, when we draw in like code, a lot of this is I have a space over here, and then I have a space over here, and this space that's over here, this is a target that I hit with my finger. Okay, so I actually don't want anything encroaching. Over here, if I want to do a specific action, if I hit it over here, I'm just like diving in deeper. I'm looking at the detail. But if I hit this pre-order button, I'm actually jumping directly to pre-order. All right, so that's just something I want you to be thinking about as we move through this. Nothing you have here is wrong. I really want simplification, and then I want you to think about space. You're working through this for the first time. I want you to be taking notes on this so that when we circle back through on this, you don't have to we're not talking about the same things over and over again. You can ask Katie. I talk a lot about grids and alignment and making sure that we have consistency, okay? But over here, the problem becomes, all right, so I've just got a lot of space. What happens when what happens when this is two lines? And right now you can do okay with it. But you definitely would have to utilize that space. And the other thing to think about is, okay, so I've got this two-line depth. This is another place where it's like, you know what, I don't want 90%. I don't want that to be 100% height because I'm going to run into spacing issues. It's gonna fall apart when it has to be 2 lines. And based on your design, where it was Taco John, you know, some restaurant names are just going to lop over. Okay, so something to think about. I would do the same thing that we did over here with regard to simplification. But you know, it's coming along. It's coming along, and I want to undo those. The big thing here, Ricardo, is, you know, in areas like this, line height. Same thing here, line height. Over here, spacing, and then simplification. Don't you know, when you make typographical selections, simplify them wherever possible. Right now, you've got 1 style, 2 style, 3 style, 4 style, 5 style. You know, just getting these together makes them feel more like a unit, and it also reduces your styles by 1. Okay, and we already said, you know, if this is a list of restaurants, I don't need that. Now our styles are down to 3. And in that particular instance, this can just move up, and now it's taking, now it fits into the space, and it has nice amount of space on each side. But I digress. I'm going to remove that, move it back. All right, now we'll kick this back over to you for some additional work. Let's see here. That's okay. So let's do. Where did it go? Okay, so Eddie, for you, you've sent over some questions about active weekends, and this is great. The only thing that I'll say here on the broadcast, because you know, I need to go through here and individually write the rebuttals or the replies, and that's the most boring thing in the world of watching a live stream. I would kick this into its own document and link back to your journal. Anything where you've got a lot of back and forth text with another party, you don't want to send them your journal. Okay. You want to like send them a separate document and then link to it in your journal. So that's like we will take this and break it out of the journal so that it can be linked back. But this information you may want to, you're going to have things in the program that are going to be show up in your portfolio. For instance, this isn't one of them, but there will be other things. And the key there is to always have it broken apart so that you can link to that thing, not later have to go back to your journal, make a new document, build it out, link it from there, link it back to the journal. Just let's make the new documents as we go rather than having to rethink it later. Okay. All right. So we talked about Ricardo. We talked about. Feel like we've got one more Abby in here. Yeah. So Abby has gone through and updated her class loop initiative. Much better photo here. Much better organization here to the side. We kind of talked about this yesterday with regard to like she's presenting with Loom. It's a good reason to, you know, have these visuals over to this side and have her text over to the left. If you know you're going to be presenting in a platform where there's going to be like the ability to obscure the screen, placing the content consistently in a spot is a great observation that she made. And I've had other people bring that up as well. What happens when we're all online and I'm presenting this? If you're in like something like Zoom, you do have a level of control to record everything separately and pull it back together later. That's not a concern that we really talk about because that to get to the point where you're recording your presentations and repackaging them back together is a bit beyond the scope of this particular presentation exercise, but it's not a bad thing to think about. And Abby was clearly thinking about like, what happens if my face is here and the typography is over here and my face is obscuring the typography? It's a great question to have, and because of that, she's now locked all of her typography down to that left side. But there's still a consistency here. This typography is easy to read. It's got a clear label, headline, subhead. It's also got a visual style for the illustrations that she's chosen. It's very consistent. Okay, I'm less concerned about the spacing over here to the left. The stickler in me is like, why don't I, just make this, I want the same space on this side as on that side, and you know, this should end here. Well, that's great, but it's also not a big deal. Um, my big concern is over here on the left. I want that starting in a very consistent spot. Okay. Um, if I was going to make any sort of recommendation here, it would be maybe I also have a consistent starting spot here in like where we see what are we creating. Our users drops down. I could see moving that up to a consistent spot, but the depth of this, some of these are just not very deep, so that would leave like a lot of space to the bottom. So it's not a big deal. I think this works pretty cleanly now that you've made those adjustments. I am looking at and this is something we've talked about recently with Ricardo. I'm looking at the sorry. I want to get in here to this so the letter spacing here. The letter spacing at 0 is pretty wide, but if you bring this down to like a -4 or -3, I think it works pretty well. I would really relish an opportunity to talk to their team at Pitch, because the tools here are interesting, but this slider is, I want more control than it gives me. It goes to like -7 so quickly. Anyway, and then it goes to 9. It's just like this tool is. If there's anything frustrating about Pitch, it's the typography tools. They're just not quite there. Anyway, although I do like the fact that they've got styles that are available for us, so you can create the new styles here, and maybe that's where that would make this a little easier to deal with. I get that space right there. I'm going to do that one for you because that one's just driving me nuts. What we're doing now, why this is important. Okay, so what's funny is why the school education portal is important, what we're working on now. It's like this, what we are creating. It's almost like to fall in line with that, we need another screen up here, but it's not a big deal. It's like it only becomes apparent to me later. And school education portal is kind of serving that same role. What we are creating, school education portal. So again, that's me being really fussy. What I do think is good here, and I can't stress this enough, is the fact that you have a very consistent presentation. Like you could stand in front of a room and this feels like something that wasn't just, hey, I'm just going to throw a bunch of wireframes and sticky notes and pictures of things on the wall. I'm going to actually present our plan. I do think it leans probably heavier on this illustration style than I would like to for an update. The one thing I would love to see is if there were actual artifacts from the user flows or the wireframes, which again we've discussed why you don't have wireframes at this stage for this particular exercise, but just something to show that there are, there's a certain point where it's like what we're doing now, and we want to have users provide feedback, and we want to build prototype test with users. I want to see some artifacts in the future, not for now, but in the future when you're going through, I want to see artifacts of what you're actually working on. So this would be a great place to begin pulling in user flows. Like we're building user flows based on these user stories and user stories and user flows. And what that does is it's tangible proof that something's occurring, and people begin to see, oh wow, this isn't just a bunch of illustrations and a bunch of words. There's actual work here. Okay, people want to see the actual work. All right, and then down here, I think this is this is probably where you want to like have questions and whatnot. Right now it's just kind of crammed over here in the corner, so I would, you could also do it like this, where the person's looking into it, but that's like really minor stuff. So good work overall. This is like a big jump forward. I think you're good here, and your presentation was fine, Abby. The one thing I would say, and I'm going to come over here and transition out. The one thing I would say with regard to the presentation, what you'll discover when you're doing your presentation, if you're watching this and you're like coming up on the area that Abby's in, what you'll discover about your presentation is if it's longer than a minute, like anybody can do a minute-long presentation. It's not hard. It is hard to edit, but when you get beyond that, when you're carrying like your presentations in the 10 to 20 slide category, then it becomes very easy to begin to meander. Okay, and that's where you really require practice. You got to practice what you're saying. You just can't kind of roll in and wing it. You can wing like a couple of slides. A lot of us, when we work at bigger corporations, bigger companies, we present a couple of slides in the group context. Very easy to do. But when you're carrying the room doing your own presentation, it becomes a lot harder. So just understand that when you're doing that, look out for the middle of that presentation, because you begin to meander, you begin to look for words, and that's where practice and mastery of the content really comes into play. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for today's edition. Tuesday number 5. No, Tuesday number 4. I don't know which version of Tuesday it is, but I know it's Friday. I hope all of you have a great weekend. I'll see some of you a little later today. The rest of you, I'll see you again on Monday. Take care.